Hello guys and gals and welcome. So today I wanted to go over the problems with Diablo 4 so far. I have been putting in some serious time on Diablo 4. I haven't actually added it all up, but I'm pretty sure it's more than enough to make my girlfriend hate me. And let's just say that it's probably well over the number of hours that any human being should put into a video game within the time period that I've put into a video game. And I've got a lot to say. I want to do an official review of the game and talk about everything. But I feel like this one is kind of more important because this highlights a lot of the issues with the game that are not necessarily things that I think can be ignored and need to be fixed by Blizzard. Now, I want to preface this by saying very simply that I do not feel the game is bad. I actually, in my personal opinion, I think the game is very fun. I've become addicted to doing things like theory crafting characters, which is absolutely amazingly fun, going through and trying to figure out new characters, new builds, ways to create characters, finding unique items and working those into builds or creating entire builds around them. And in general, I've been having an absolute blast with Diablo 4. So this is not a negative critique of the game as a whole. This is just simply me pointing out all the problems that I've had over the ridiculously long period of time that I've been playing Diablo 4. And, I mean, if I did like a quick look through on my stream list here, I've got, I don't even know, 100, like way over 100 hours. Literally like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6... 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 different streams over the past, 16 days that have all basically added up to anywhere between 12 hours or more. So if we multiply that out, I'm looking at, what is that, 15 times 12? Easily 180 hours, probably a little bit more than that because there's time that I spent off camera as well, and then there's also some missing bits of little data here and there that didn't make it into the stream because of VOD corruption issues and all those blah 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 blah. You don't need to know about this stuff, but basically well over 100 hours of gameplay. All right, and I'd like to dive into this and talk about each one of these issues, and if you have an issue with Diablo 4 as well, feel free to put it in. And this is not a hate party. I'm not hating on the game. I actually really enjoy the game. But I do think that there are some serious issues with the game that need to be addressed, and I'm hoping that if they address these, the game will become better as a whole. So let's get started. I'm going to pull up my ridiculously long notepad. Number one is the overlay map. The more I play the game, the more I realize that the overlay map missing has caused me so many problems. It is a running joke, a laughable running joke that you can literally not do anything within this game without a monster coming up and beating the crap out of you as soon as you enter any kind of UI element. Literally to the point where if I pull up even my inventory screen and start looking at an item that's in my inventory, literally a monster will come beating the crap out of me as soon as I open my inventory and basically even just hover over an item. One of the level 100 hardcore characters literally died while checking his map. And that's not even a joke. He literally just died while checking his map. We really need an overlay map in this game. And it has become more and more apparent the more and the longer I play that the overlay map being missing is a huge issue. And it wouldn't be such a huge issue if the minimap was better. The minimap in this game is pretty much garbage. It's zoomed in way too close, first off. Like, you can't adjust the zoom of the minimap. So what it actually shows you is often just not even enough. Like, here I am right now, I'm sitting inside of a town, right? I'm by the waypoint. I can see, the blacksmith, I can see the occultist, I can see, the jeweler, etc., right? But the minimap's not zoomed out far enough for me to see anything more than that. I can just barely see the purveyor of curiosities down there, and I have no clue where the stash is. So unless I've been to this town before, unless I know where the stash is, I have to open the map, and I have to actually find the stash, which is way over here, right? So the minimap just generally tends to be pretty horribly useless because number one, you can't customize it in any way, shape, or form. Number two, it's zoomed in too far. Um, and I just, in general, I don't like the way that the minimap is zoomed in, the uselessness of the minimap. Sometimes it's useful, sometimes. And even when it is useful, a lot of the times you still have to move your character around to literally explore the minimap to figure out where the hell you're going. And so you spend most of your time in this map with the entire screen blocked, which isn't even really that great either. I've been having issues with this map, and this involves like not being able to see certain things. Like when I was hunting for the Lilith statues, one of the things that I did on a regular basis was I was constantly zooming out, to see the entire zone. Well, when you zoom out too far, all the Lilith statues disappear from the map. In fact, what is actually on the map at any given time seems to be based on your zoom level, and everything seems to be set at just a little bit too far of a zoom in than it possibly should be. It's actually quite terrible. And it's very disappointing for a game that is literally, like a freaking 2023 title, for it to have such a terrible minimap overlay and no overlay system. Like, I feel like this is we're regressing back in time here. Like, every game pretty much since Diablo 2 has come out has had a decent overlay map and a really nice mini map, and most games don't fail on this one feature that is probably one of the most important features for traversing the world. And for some reason or another, Diablo 4 has absolutely failed in terms of the overlay map, the mini map, and even the world map itself. All three are just terrible. Visibility is bad due to walls. So this is something that I've encountered in a large number of dungeons, but no dungeon or no fight in particular exemplifies this more than the Duriel battle. The Duriel battle had this really big wall in it, and about 50% of the playing field was just completely obscured from just anything. You couldn't even see Duriel, you couldn't see yourself, you couldn't see anything. Some of the areas and the dungeons have walls like this that just completely obscure everything in that particular area, and it is really freaking weird when it happens, because you're literally trying to fight a monster who's behind a wall, and you can't see the monster, you can't see yourself, and you're just clicking and pressing buttons and hoping something happens because you're blind. I have died many times due to this, literally trying to walk into a room and the entire room in front of me is obscured, despite the fact that I'm looking through the doorway. And as soon as I walk through the doorway, the entire room becomes, lit up to me, of course. But at that point, it's too late, because there's ground effects, explosions, and all sorts of other things that if I had been able to see before I walked into the room, I would have avoided. But I can't. And this is a kind of just a horrible issue that happens occasionally. It's not like a constant issue. Most of the dungeons are in open world areas. Most of the dungeons tend to be, wall-less, I guess would be the term, wall-less. But when you do occur, when this horrible issue does happen, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about, and it's not going to be fun. Dungeon floors. This is also an issue right here. Dungeon floors sometimes cause an issue with the ground-based attacks. So, more specifically, there are a bunch of dungeons that are basically filled with water, like the sewers and things like that. And, a lot of the times there's poison monsters in said dungeons. Well, the poison attacks go on the ground and get obscured by the water that is green in that zone. So, it makes it very difficult to actually see the ground-based effects in some of these dungeons where the ground is obscuring the effects, and then you end up stepping on the poison, which is practically invisible in these dungeons, and you end up dying. This is a constant thing throughout pretty much the entire game, is that specific dungeons have specific floorings that will just completely obscure effects. And it's annoying. Especially when you get into one of those poison dungeons with poison monsters, and the floor is green, and everything is green, and the water is covering up the floor, which is also green, and it just obscures the entire thing. I could probably show this off to you guys really quickly, but this video is going to be long enough as it is. Some attacks, especially one-shots from bosses, are inaccurately sized. It seems very clear that when you're standing outside of the radius of one and die anyway, that something hinky is going on. Now, we tried to do the Worldstone Capstone boss, the Worldstone 4 Capstone boss, very early. In our 60s, it was way too low. I will perfectly admit that it was way too low. However, we got frustrated not by the fact that we were getting one shot by the boss, but by the fact that we would be standing outside of the circle and still get hit by the effects anyway. If we pretend, for instance, that the waypoint here, the actual lit up waypoint, is the effect of the circle, I could be standing right here on the outside of the effect of the circle, not move at all, the effect would go off and I would still die anyway. Some of the effects within the game seem to be inaccurately sized, and because of this, it's very difficult to avoid them because you don't know exactly where you need to stand to avoid them. The entire purpose of having a ground-based effect with a circular, like zone of the effect is that you can see the effect and go, hey, I shouldn't stand there. And then you move out of the effect, right? Well, if you're standing outside of the effect and you still get hit by the effect anyway, I don't know exactly what to say about that other than that's stupid, and they need to address the sizing of the individual effects and figure out why some of the effects are bleeding over the borders that they created. Or just simply update the graphics of the effects so the effects are larger, so the actual graphic of the effect is larger to accommodate for the actual size of the effect if the effect is not, is bleeding out of the borders of the graphical design that they've created. One or the other needs to happen, because when you have a game like this, especially when you're dealing with monsters who can literally just, one punk you into the dirt, you definitely want to have accurate visuals. Otherwise, players are going to get frustrated when they die to an attack that they obviously were not standing in. Why can't we farm story bosses? Like, this is a really big one for me. Why can't we farm story bosses? I really don't want to spoil things for you guys, but if you haven't played the campaign through at this point, I mean, feel free to mute me during this. It's only going to be a very short little time, and I'll de-highlight this when I'm finished talking about it. So here goes. There are many bosses within the campaign. Lilith and Duriel, that we would have a blast farming. Fun to find, put them in a dungeon, like make it so that we can fight them on a regular basis. Turn them into a butcher style where literally Andariel or Duriel like literally come to hunt us down in the middle of a dungeon. But like, why can't we farm the bosses? In Diablo 2, we could go back and fight any boss that we wanted to at any time. In Diablo 3, you could go back and fight any boss that you wanted to at any time. In Diablo 1, you could go back and fight any boss basically that you wanted to at any time, except for in single player where they stayed dead. And I don't get it. We're in Diablo 4. Like, this is something that people love doing. They love going back. I love going back and laying the smackdown on Diablo, or going back and laying the smackdown on Andariel. And they don't have to have special drops or anything. I mean, just let us go back and re-experience these fights. Why are they gated behind campaign fights? Like, why can't we just go back and enjoy fighting them? Like, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It's really stupid, in fact. Next is no notifications of when world boss spawn. So, like, you have to check the map. Like, it's the only thing you can do. Like, you've got to check the map and scroll around and look and see when a world boss spawns. Either that or use a third-party tool to find that. And by the way, I actually have a pretty good third-party tool. I posted a video on it. It's Diablo4-life.com, I think, or I can't remember the exact address off the top of my head. But if you take a look on my page, you'll find a world boss tracker video, and it's a pretty good world boss tracker. But why do we need this? Why can't the world boss just, like a little indicator like pop up on my screen, world boss spawning in 30 minutes or something? Like, why does it have to be like to the point where literally I don't even know the world boss is going on, and half the time if I'm in a dungeon or if I'm, like involved in what I'm doing, and I don't see it, I just miss it entirely. Like, why is it? I mean, unless somebody literally tells me the world boss is up, half the time I don't even know, because the world boss just like stealth spawns. Like, it's a 30-minute timer and then he's gone. And so, like, if I'm not paying attention for just merely 30 minutes, which could just be a couple dungeons, like if I'm running sigils, nightmare sigils, that's the world boss is gone and I missed it. Like, just it's done. Like, why is there no notification of the world boss spawning? It's extremely easy to get out of sync with the group, wasting members' time and effort. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, when you join a group, a lot of the times you are pulled into another player's instance. Every player basically has their own instance, and every instance is separate from another one. Like, for instance, right now I've completed all of the strongholds. If I were to join a group, a party of a person who hasn't done the strongholds, all the strongholds would become red again because they haven't completed them. I've joined their world, and because of that, their world is out of sync with mine, and they're the party leader, so now I am in their world, okay? Now, the problem with this is that because every person has a different world state and every person's quest flags are in different positions, a lot of the times it may not become apparent to the people who are joining that, you know, the person with the lowest flags needs to be the party leader, always. So basically in this game, if whoever has the least progress on the story campaign, they have to be the leader. Otherwise, you can literally join the party campaign, the quest campaign, or any other quests with a player, like even to the point where you do a stronghold. I've actually seen this before, where literally players will do a stronghold with another player. Both players need the stronghold, and two players will do the stronghold together. Then one player leaves the group only to find out that he did not actually get completion status for doing the stronghold, despite the fact that both of them needed the stronghold at the same time. This has also led to some really weird issues with dungeons, where literally one person will join the dungeon, another person will join the dungeon, the first person gets booted out of the dungeon, the second person goes in because he's on a different party flag than the leader for some reason, which is really weird. Then the leader goes back into the dungeon because he's like, why did I get booted out? The person who's in the dungeon gets booted out and the leader goes in. And this continues back and forth over and over again, where the two players are stuck on different party states at the same time, which is really freaking strange. And they really need to work on this, because it's happened to us quite a few times where literally we get stuck on different party states or get out of sync with the group somehow. And then you have to end up backtracking. So, like, especially with the campaign and quests and things like this, or strongholds, if you don't get completion status and they do, then you have to go back and you have to complete it again. There's no other alternative. You have to go do the content a second time. And it's really stupid, because a lot of the times you guys are synced up. You make sure that you're synced up in advance, and then somehow you still end up getting out of sync anyway. Quests don't automatically come up on the tracker when you are doing that quest. So if I have a quest that I'm doing, for instance, there's one right here that I could go over to real quick, and let's just go ahead and pin this on the map and I'll ride over there. But if I start doing a quest, if I literally physically am doing the quest, collecting the items for the quest in the correct quest area, why am I not getting anything popping up on my screen that I'm doing said quest? Like, why is it just like to the point where literally it just ignores the fact that I have the quest on my bar at all, and it doesn't help me in any way, shape, or form to complete this quest? In most games, and I've played a lot of games that have quests like this, a quest tracker and things like this, basically what it does is it literally will pull that quest up on the screen. And when it pulls that quest up, you know, on your right hand side, you know what the objectives are, because you're spending time doing the quest. Well, here's a quest right here, the Whispers from Below, still not up on my screen. I can activate this quest. I can go over here and talk to the person, and it basically what it's going to do is it's going to continue the quest line as if I'm doing it, but it will never bring it up on the side panel. Like, it's never going to actually bring this quest up on the panel. So if I want to bring it up on the panel, I've got to figure out what the quest is first off. So I have to actually go in here and look at the quest. So it's the Whispers from Below. I've got to pull up my quest panel. I've got to find the Whispers from Below on my quest panel, which is actually pretty difficult when you're first starting, because this thing is like chock full of stuff, by the way. And you got to add it to your list, and then it becomes active, right? And none of the quests will pop up here automatically. None of them. Another problem with this is that the limit of quests. And I think that's my next. Yes, my next one is literally, why is there a quest limit? You can only put one quest on the sidebar here at any given time. Why am I limited to only one quest? I mean, 2 or 3. I mean, like, half the time you literally will be doing 2 or 3 quests in the same exact zone, almost sometimes for the same exact person. Why can't I put more than 2 or 3 quests here? Why am I limited to one quest on the sidebar? It's painful. It made running the Renown ridiculously difficult. And I did all of the Renown. I did all of the frickin' dungeons. I did all the waypoints. I did all the quests so that I could get my beautiful 20 Paragon points at the end of the Renown tree. So, and this is not coming from someone who hasn't done a ridiculously large number of quests. As you can see, I've done 30 out of 35 quests in Fractured Peaks, 28 out of 38 in Dry Steps. I've done 35 out of 49 in Hawazar, 35 out of 44 in Kyrgyzstan, and 34 out of 47 in Scotland. So I've done a large number of quests, and this pissed me off the entire time because I constantly had to figure out, what quest am I on, where am I going, let me put it on the hotbar because I don't know what the hell's going on right now. I've got like 30,000 quests on this list. I know what I'm supposed to do, but where the hell am I actually supposed to go? And there'd be like 6 or 7 blue circles all overlapping each other, and I'd have no idea which one was which or where I was actually going because this thing never updated. Never. Not once. Would it ever pull up a quest that I was currently on, even if I just activated the quest. Even if I just walked up to the quest location, activated the quest from the person, it would never pop up on the bar. Next on the list is some of the mechanics are just generally unfun, requiring 100% of your attention all the time. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, some of them are probably the worst mechanics that I've ever seen. And when I say 100% of your attention all the time, I mean, imagine a jealous girlfriend who literally, like, sighs and yells at you if you even look at your phone. Like, glance at it. If you even glance at the phone. Like, she immediately starts going, if you don't want to be here, if you don't want to be here, you could just go. You don't have to be here. And what am I talking about specifically? Well, there's tons of these in the game. I can pull these up, and I can actually make some sigils real quick. Let me just go ahead and craft some sigils, and let me just craft 3 of them here. And I guarantee you I'll probably get one of them. The Blood Blisters is not as bad, but the Blood Blisters is one of the mechanics that literally forces you to constantly be on the move, like constantly paying attention. There's also the... Of course, I had to not get any of them, and I'm currently out of effects here. But there's tons of them in here, like the floating rock that just follows you around. Literally makes it so that you can't even like go AFK for 2 seconds. Like, you literally are just sitting AFK at the beginning of the dungeon. You could just be sitting AFK at the beginning of the dungeon, and the rock will just come up and kill you. Like, it doesn't care, like, what's going on. It doesn't care what the mechanics are of the game, or you know, the fact that your cat just pooped on the floor or vomited somewhere, or that your girlfriend needs your attention for 10 seconds. These mechanics, like the rock that follows you around, the shade that constantly follows you around and shoots little things at you, you know, just all of them, all of these stupid mechanics where literally it's just like, you can't look away from the screen for a fraction of a second without being horribly punished, are terrible. Like, I like some of the mechanics that are in the Nightmare Sigils, and I'm not trying to be overly negative, but there are definitely mechanics within the Nightmare Sigils that are just pure cancer. Like, they basically make it so that even if you, like, looked away from the screen like this for 1 second, half the time that's long enough for you literally to get killed. The mortars that constantly spawn under your feet the entire time. The drifting shades that follow you around. The floating rock that shoots lightning at you constantly. The blisters that constantly spawn and do huge giant explosions that can kill you in basically one shot if you're doing higher level content. Like, the poison effects that constantly appear under your feet while you're trying to run the dungeon, so that you can't ever stand still, so that you can't ever go AFK for even a half a second. Literally, there was one dungeon I was doing where the effect was so bad that I had a drink. Like, you know, I had my drink sitting right here. I literally couldn't pick up my drink to take a sip of the drink and put the drink back down without being in mortal peril. They need to tone down some of these, like, you have to pay attention to the screen 100% of the time effects. They're not fun. Like, dodging these effects, like, all the time, like the lightning that comes down and literally has the bubble where you have to be paying attention to the bubble, and the bubble literally gets stuck on, like, ladders and stuff like that. Or follows one guy that's going way ahead of the group, and then the 3 people that are behind literally get killed because they can't make it to the bubble in time. Like, these requiring 100% of your attention at all time effects need to be removed or fixed in some way, so that they are not literally forcing you to never blink. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, half the time, if you blink too hard, these 100% attention requiring effects will kill you. High level requirements on sacred items. This is going to be one of the dumbest things. So sacred items are level 45, okay? Level 45 is the minimum level that you have to be able to utilize a sacred item, all right? So if I go out anywhere at this particular point, I mean, we could just go to a dungeon real quick. It doesn't really matter. Let's just go to this one. And basically, when you kill monsters, you're going to get sacred items. Let's go grab a couple of these sacred items just for example, but we're going to talk about this. So I'm currently level 86 or whatever, right? I don't even know what level I am, but I'm pretty high, okay? Sacred items are basically useless for any character past level 60. For the most part. There's some niche case use scenarios where a sacred item might be better than an ancestral item, depending on the specific stats. Like if you've got like a perfect rolled sacred, you might still be able to get away with utilizing some armor items and maybe even rings and amulets, but weapons in general just tend to be absolutely useless past level 60 because the ancestral weapons are just way better than the sacred weapons, and this leads to basically the sacred items being absolutely worthless past level 60. Like I said, with some niche case scenarios where you can possibly get, like some decent use case out of a sacred item for a little bit further than that. But the problem lies in the fact that sacred items just kind of don't really have a lot of usefulness outside of lower level characters. If you're between the levels of 45 and 60, it's great. You're going to use sacred items for quite some time. Between the levels of 61 and, infinity, sacred items become worthless. And let me see if I can find a sacred item real quick so I can exemplify this, because I feel like this is really important. But basically what's happening is the sacred items are taking on the level requirement of the item or the character who finds the sacred item. This means that the sacred items often have like the worst level requirements, and nobody in their right mind is ever going to utilize these items. And what do I mean by this? Well, like right now I'm level 86. So when I find a sacred item in this dungeon, which I will eventually find one, the sacred item is going to be level 86. Nobody wants to use that crap. Nobody who actually would want to use it is going to put it on. Like, because they can't put it on. They legitimately cannot put on the item because it's too high level for them. And the people who can put on the item are literally way too low level to actually ever put that item on. Which makes the sacred items just absolutely trash. Because they're stuck with this ridiculously high level for no reason. It doesn't even make any sense why they have such a high level. And of course I'm having trouble finding one. But why give them a high level? The only characters in the game that can utilize sacred items, really, for the most part, are level 45 to 60 characters. By putting a level 86 requirement on a sacred item when a high level finds it, you are immediately taking that sacred item and you're saying to everyone within that zone that, guess what? Nobody gets to use this item because you're a high-level character. You don't want to use this sacred item. And guess what? It's level 86. So nobody who would actually want to use it is ever going to touch this item because now it's stuck at a really, really high level, level 86. And why? Like, I can't farm equipment on my high-level character. I realized this. At a certain point, my high-level character, or sorry, my highest-level character became so high-level that the equipment that he was finding, no matter how good it was, no matter how amazing it was way too high of a level requirement to ever be used by any of my newer characters that I was trying to level up. I currently have 2 more characters. I have a crit wolf, a crit poison wolf, which I'm having a lot of fun trying to theory craft and build. And I have a basic barbarian, which is going to be using frenzy as his main attack. And the thing is that, like, I'm looking at this, I'm looking at these items, and I'm like, okay, well, they can't use any of this. Nothing that I find on any of my high-level characters is ever going to be useful to these lower-level characters. Because the sacred items are all locked behind my character level. The ancestral items are all locked behind my character level. The unique items are all locked behind my character level. Every single item is literally automatically the level requirement of my character, which is absolutely stupid. And once I get to level 100, all of those sacred items, literally, honestly, once you get to level 61, so once you get to level 61, all of those sacred items become garbage. The first thing that you do as a character, literally as a high-level character, is you go through your inventory and you mark every single one of those sacred items as junk. And then you go straight to the shop and you sell them to the NPC because you know that nobody is ever going to use those items. No, none of the low levels are ever going to use them, and none of the high levels are ever going to use them, so they are essentially garbage. Next on the list, why are sacred items dropping past level 60? So this falls back on the previous one, which is if sacred items are useless to high-level characters, which they are, and sacred items are only useful to level 45 to 60 characters who are leveling up, why are they spam dropping for characters who are past level 60 anyway? Like, when you know for a fact that nobody's going to touch them, when that literally once they get their ancestral items and they have their godlike, items, like, because once you get past like level 61, you're literally just sitting at, let's put that at 61. Once you get past level 61, you're literally using the ancestrals. That's what you're using. So at a certain point, the sacred items dropping becomes just wasted space. They're basically like trash items at this point. Like, nobody's ever going to use them. Nobody's ever going to put them on. You're not going to put them on. Lower level characters aren't going to put them on. About the only thing they're good for is deconstructing at the blacksmith for veiled crystals, which you have millions of, and selling for currency. Armor being tied to resistances. It's a very bad mechanic. It works for newbies. That's about it. I don't know who came up with this idea that armor should be tied to resistances, but number one, it makes the resistances on my equipment, like, completely pointless. I don't even know why I have resistances on my equipment, and in fact, I would probably rather just not have resistances on any of my equipment. And you might think I'm stupid for saying this, but the truth of the matter is that because half of all of my resistances are coming from my armor, the resistances that come from my equipment are half as effective as they would normally be. And then on top of this, there's also a huge penalty of 40% resistance reduction for being in World Tier 4, which essentially makes resistances one of the worst stats in the game, because even with massive amounts of armor and even with massive amounts of resistances, you're still looking at basically no reduction from anything, like by increasing these stats. So increasing your resistances basically gives you nothing. And the other problem with armor being tied to resistances is that as the level of the monster increases, as the monster level increases over your level, the armor becomes increasingly useless. There's a huge level penalty. I mean, ridiculous level penalty within the game. And as the level of the monster increases over your level, the level penalty gets to the point where literally armor becomes next to useless. You could literally get, like, most, if not all, of your armor value is removed when you're fighting a monster who's like 20 levels higher than you or 30 levels higher than you. So armor becomes pointless. Like it becomes absolutely useless. But here's the biggest issue with this. Not the fact that armor is pointless, but the fact that your resistances are tied to the armor value. So as your armor becomes more and more useless, so too does the resistances that the armor provides. I would much rather have the resistances come from my equipment and not be tied to the armor value, so that I'm not constantly worrying about what level monster I'm fighting, because the higher level the monster, the more damage I'm taking from everything, because my armor is just becoming increasingly more useless. In Diablo 2, if I had 75% fire resistance and I was fighting a high-level monster, I still had 75% fire resistance. Why would my fire resistance take a hit just because I'm fighting a high-level monster? But in Diablo 4, if I have 75% fire resistance and I'm fighting a high-level monster, half of my fire resistance is now basically worthless. So my 75% gets cut in half. And now I've basically got half of my effective fire resistance versus that same monster just because he's higher level than me, which is stupid. It's absolutely dumb. There isn't enough stash space for one character, let alone 2, 3, or 4. And I really want to exemplify this. So this is something that I have played around with and looked at. I've started leveling up this character. It's only been about 15, 16 days, right? And I've already filled up my stash with legendaries that I want to save, legendary aspects that I want to save, unique items that I want to hold on to, and I have destroyed a lot of unique items. I literally have gotten 10 Blood Artisan Curiosas. I only have 1 in my inventory. I have gotten so many of the Greaves of the Empty Tomb and things like the Penitent Greaves, and I've destroyed most of them. Rare items. I'm holding on to specific rare items that have extreme value for specific builds, and handing them out to the kinship. So I have a clan, and the clan literally is like, I need such and such item, and I go take a look through my stash, and I'm like, okay, let me see if I've got that item for you. And sure enough, I'll have that item just sitting in my stash, and I'll be like, will this work? And they'll be like, oh my god, that's the most perfect item I've ever seen in my life. Like, this is absolutely what I needed for my character, right? And so then I'm like, all right, well, if that's what you need, then here, take it. And we just give it to him, and he upgrades it and uses it for his character. But after one character, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, not 10, not 20. After one character, all 4 of these stash tabs are almost full, and I'm going to have to go through and basically destroy or get rid of as much of this stuff as I can, or give it away, because I literally don't even have the stash space to start a second character. And God forbid I save any items for that character too, because literally, it's getting to the point where if I store up items for maybe 2 or 3 characters, I will probably have no stash space left whatsoever. It's really bad. I don't know what it is exactly that we need to fix this. In Diablo 2 Resurrected, every character had their own non-shared tab. Perhaps every character needs his own non-shared tab. I think that might actually fix a lot of this problem. Because, number one, it would allow you to make mule characters, which is something that I think this game really needs. And number two, it would also offer a space that you could dedicate specifically to that character. If you're playing a druid, you could use it to store your druid-only items. And then you could use the rest of the stash to store items that are for everybody. And that would give you a space. Like, for instance, I have tons of items in here that are for Necromancer only, like Shadow Blight passives and Minion legendaries and things like that. But I also have legendaries like this, which are, more generic and for everybody. So, useful. Another issue that I actually need to type this in here because I totally forgot this one, which has to do with aspects being linked to your level. So I don't know why this one is either. So if you take a look at the aspects in my inventory here, you'll notice that I have some aspects that are pretty old. Like this one only requires level 43. It's a regular aspect, right? Then I have something like this one right here, which is a sacred legendary aspect. And as we talked about earlier, with sacred items are level 45 min, and they really top out at about level 60. But this is a sacred aspect that is level 79. If I want to use this on a lower level character, if I want to use this aspect on a lower level character, like say I want to level up a second Necromancer, and I'd like to do a Minion Mancer, right? Well, this is a Minion Mancer aspect. Well, guess what? He's not touching this aspect until level 79, because if you utilize this aspect on an item, even if it's a lower level item, even if it's like a regular item, not even sacred, not even legendary, not legendary, not sacred, not ancestral. If it's just a regular item, a regular rare item, and you put this aspect on it, it will immediately turn it into a level 79 item, and it's really freaking stupid. This is just another one of the really weird things they've got going on with the level requirements on aspects. Now, I understand the level requirement for specific aspects. Let me explain. So some items within the game have what's called flat stats as opposed to percentage-based stats or seconds. Okay, these do require a level requirement, and I don't think I have any on me right now, but the easiest way for me to show this is to take out the razor plate that I have and the high-level razor plate. So assuming for a second that this is an aspect that you could pull off an item, the razor plate, which is the low-level one, only has 5,280 thorns. It's a relatively low level. The high-level razor plate has 10,778 thorns. These are flat damage numbers, okay? So the problem with this is that you wouldn't want to be able to rip off the 10,778 and throw it onto a low-level character at level 45, because that would cause scaling issues, and the person would just be OP until they finally got up to the level 80 that the razor plate would require. However, the majority of aspects are not like that. So 90% of the aspects do not have flat damage numbers on them. They're percentage-based or second-based, and they have no reason to be scaled the way they are into these ridiculously high levels. I shouldn't have to, find a perfect legendary affix, like, for instance, this particular helmet right here, which is a perfect legendary aspect of 20% mid-damage reduction for my minions, and then have it tied behind a level 78 requirement. Why? Why does that need to be tied behind a level 78 requirement? It's stupid. Next. Why do sigils share stash space with elixirs? We're already having trouble with stash space in this game, and when you go to your consumables tab, your sigils are literally pulling the same inventory space as my elixirs. I've got tons of elixirs that I've found throughout the game world that I don't want to get rid of because I'm drinking on a constant basis, and you kind of want to have one of every kind of elixir in here. You want one for fire resistance, cold resistance, poison resistance, all those beautiful things, because when you're in a specific dungeon that's full of poison, it's helpful to pull out a poison resistance potion, right? So having all these potions in here is very helpful. But your Whispering Keys and your sigils also consume the same stash space. So much so that literally the sigils flood your inventory to the point where you can't pick up more. I'm sure that everyone who has run a Nightmare Dungeon at this point has come across this issue, where basically you're doing the Nightmare Dungeon and a sigil drops, and you can't pick it up. You literally can't pick it up, and you have to either sacrifice another sigil or drop one of your potions on the ground instead. And why are they sharing stash space? I don't understand why they're sharing stash space. I think it's stupid. Give the freaking sigils their own tab. Make them separate from the consumables. The sigils are way too spammy. I'll do one dungeon and get 7 of the damn things, and none of them stack, and they all take up way too much space. So give them their own tab, the sigil tab or whatever you want to call it, but get them out of my consumable tab, because you're hogging up valuable inventory space that I'm using for elixirs. the horse in town is literally slower than having run speed bonuses. Like, literally, I have 2 run speed bonuses on my equipment. I've got a 26.2% on my amulet, and I've got a 20.3% on my boots. So I could run pretty fast. Like, this character runs pretty darn fast, as you can see. When I get on my horse, I swear the horse is pretty much slower than how fast I can run. You can't spacebar. You can't actually, make the horse go faster in town. But the horse just feels so slow. I mean, why even let us ride the horse in town if literally you can run faster than you could ride the horse? I don't know if the base speed of the horse just needs to be sped up a little bit so that it's faster than a player, or what's going on, but it's painful sometimes to ride the horse in town, versus just simply running around in town. And on top of that, like, you never know exactly where the city ends to the point where you can start utilizing your spacebar. So you might get on your horse way too early and you're just stuck in this slow state. Now, granted, the horse is much faster than walking when you use the run button. All right, so when you use that run button, he's definitely faster. 100%. But as soon as you hit town and as soon as you can no longer hit that thing, I might as well just hop off my horse and run. Because honestly, my horse is faster, or my regular run walk speed is faster than the horse. The Renown system is a bit much for every ladder launch. So I spent the majority of my time trying to cap out these Renown bonuses. And rightly so, because the Renown bonuses aren't something minuscule. They're not something, that you shouldn't have, or that you can just shirk off and be like, I don't need that. No, it's literally 2 skill points, right, per region. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. It's 10 skill points. 10 skill points is massive in the terms of setting up your character. It's 20 Paragon points, which is massive in terms of setting up your character. It's literally 5 extra potion slots, which is massive for survivability. So getting this Renown is a really big pain in the butt. Like, I spent a very long time grinding out these Renowns, getting all the waypoints, doing all the area discovers, clearing the strongholds, doing all the side quests, doing all the side dungeons, getting all my altars of Lilith. And it took a considerable amount of effort to clear these. I mean, it's pretty massive to get all of these done. And for those of you who are still working on it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And for those of you who've done it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So what am I talking about here? Well, if we have to do this for every ladder launch, it's not going to be something that people look forward to. Like, doing that once is fine. Like, I had fun doing the quests one time. I had fun doing all the dungeons one time. I had fun doing all the strongholds one time. But you're talking about, like, a week's worth of work to get your character beefed out. Like, every single time the ladder resets, you're going to have to go through that process again of doing all the dungeons, getting all the waypoints, doing all the side quests, doing all the strongholds, getting all the altars of Lilith statue. And you might say to yourself, well, the altars of Lilith statue, Ginger, carry over with the ladder. Well, maybe they do. But if you want those 4 Paragon points, you're going to have to grind Renown. And you still get Renown for clicking on the altars of Lilith, even if the bonuses are still there. So even if you keep all 68 points, even if you keep all the Paragon points, the 4 Paragon points that altars of Lilith give you, the max obols and everything, even if you keep all that, this is still 340 Renown that you're going to need to hit those 4 Paragon points. Because otherwise, you're going to have to grind every single dungeon for 30 Renown apiece, and you're going to have to go and do every single side quest, and this still probably won't be enough. Even after doing all the waypoints, even after doing all the strongholds, even after doing all the altars of Lilith, and discovering every area that you can possibly discover, you still have to grind out all the side quests and do most of the dungeons to hit that maximum Renown. If we say that the altars of Lilith are going to carry over between each ladder, well then, Now you've got 340 Renown missing, which means now you have to grind even more dungeons, and now you have to grind even more side quests to finish that off. Because you're not getting the 340 from the Altars of Lilith anymore. Because that doesn't carry over. All in all, I don't think that the Renown system was designed with ladder launches in mind. As a one-off thing that you do to enhance your account, yes. As a ladder launch feature that you have to do every single time ladder launches, if you want your character to have that significant improvement in his power level, which is 10 skill points and 20 renown points and 5 potion slots, if you want that, you're going to have to do that big old grind all over again, and I think it's going to turn a lot of people off the ladder launches. I'm really hoping that they do something to lessen this. I don't know what it is that they need to do. I'm not a freaking game developer, but I can tell you right now, it's already daunting. I'm already looking at it, and just like, I'm like, I don't want to have to do this every single ladder launch. Why can't we watch the cinematics from the main screen? I mean, Diablo 2 is an easy example. Even like the oldest version of Diablo 2, you can literally just pull up Diablo 2, and this might crash my computer, but let's see what happens. You can literally pull up the original version of Diablo 2, and literally the cinematics are right here for you to watch at any time you want to. Like, you literally can just pull these up and you can play them. And I'm not going to play them right now because half the time they get me, like, freaking copyright violated. But even in Diablo 2 Resurrected, you can pull up the cinematics and you can play them. This is, like, the simplest thing that people would definitely want. Like, I missed out on a couple of cinematics because I was in a group at the time, and one of the people in my group decided he wanted to just skip the cinematic, and then it was like, you can't watch this cinematic because the party leader has skipped this cinematic. We are skipping it. And I'm like, what? I'm like, just because he skipped it doesn't mean I want to skip it. And I literally missed out on some of the cinematics that I would really like to go back and watch, which I can't because they're not on the main screen. I can't click on any of them to watch them, which is just really weird and really stupid. Why can't we trade some of the more less important crafting materials like obols, etc.? Like, why are these locked behind, trade vaults? I mean, I could go through the materials and stat window here, and I could pull up, like, 100 of these different items. Like, I swear, like, there's not 100 in here, but, like, veiled crystals. Why can't I trade veiled crystals with my friends? I could understand coiling wards, abstruse sigils, baleful fragments, and forgotten souls. Like, these are a little bit more important and less common than the others. But like crushed beast bones, grave dust, like demon hearts, things like this, rawhide, superior leather, like silver ore, iron chunks. Like, why can't I give people this stuff that literally has almost no purpose other than just crafting some little potions and stuff like that? I don't understand why a lot of this stuff is locked. Like obols. Why can't I trade obols? Like, if I have 1,000 obols sitting in my inventory, why can't I just, like, be like, hey, you want some obols? And they're like, yeah, well, I need, like, 10 million gold. And then, like, trade my 10 million gold for the obols. Like, a lot of these things that are locked behind, like, walls that prevent you from trading, I don't understand. Now, PvP dust I can understand, because that's something that's supposed to be an accomplishment. The whole entire system is based around, like, preventing you from doing things. There are tons of things in here that I would definitely say should not be traded, like coiling wards, abstruse sigils, baleful fragments, forgotten souls. Don't let us trade those. Like, that's definitely a nope. But there's also tons of stuff in here where it's so insignificant that I don't even know why we can't give them away. Like, the other day, one of my friends was short on veiled crystals, and I was like, I'll give you some, and we tried to trade each other, and no, guess what? You can't trade veiled crystals, and I don't even know why. It feels like there's always one more important town-related NPC that's way far away from you from everything else, no matter which town you're in. So, like, it doesn't really matter which town you're in. There's always that one NPC that's like 8 miles away from everything else. This particular town is probably one of the best ones where everything seems to be almost equidistant. But like when you go to Saragar, which is the main town of Skazglen, it becomes very apparent that the stash, for some reason, is just like really far away from everything else. Like you got your, everything is all centered here. You got your little purveyor of curiosities. Everything is in a nice little circle, and then the stash is like all the way over here, and you got to run all the way over to the side. These are just little quirks that have kind of annoyed me, but every single town seems to have this one vendor or this one NPC or this one important thing that's just like extremely far away from everything in the town. If I go to Gia Cool has the occultist, which is one of the most important vendors in my opinion, because you're always at the occultist, and she's just like really far up there, like in the middle of nowhere. And so is the purveyor of curiosities of this particular town. So when you take a look at the map, you see like the armor vendors here, the jewelry vendors here, the stash is right here, right? The occultist is way up here, and the purveyor is like way over here. Like they just kind of like spread they always have like one NPC that's just really far away from the others. And to make matters worse, the occultist, you got to go up like a stairwell or go all the way around to get to the occultist. And in every town is like this. It seems like every town has some specific important thing that's just really far away from all the others for just no reason, and it's just annoying. The clan UI. So the clan UI is terrible. Finding somebody in here, searching for things, like if I wanted to search for a particular player in here, good luck. I got 110 people in this kinship so far, and I have to scroll all the way down and try and find that person on this list, and it's just annoying. Another annoying thing about this is that more often than not, it doesn't have any kind of like, how do I put this? You can't tell who is who, because when they join the clan, you end up with their BattleNet account, right? But when they're in the clan, it shows you their player name. And the player name, of course, changes depending on what player they're on or what character they're on, and so you kind of like run into this weird issue where like it doesn't seem to have any kind of like cohesiveness to like between the two. Like you can really use a search function here. Okay, and speaking of a search function, let's also talk about that real quick. So, stash search function. So why is there no stash search function? Like, I'm over here and I'm looking in the stash, right? And let's say I'm looking for a specific aspect. So let's say I need to replace my splintering aspect on my weapon for whatever reason. Like maybe I have a new weapon, and I'm looking through all of my legendary affixes here, and I'm trying to find a splintering aspect. So I'm going through them all, one by one, trying to find them. It's a pain in the butt. Like, why can't I just have like a little button up here, a little search button? I can type in, splintering, and then pull up all of the unique items that have the splintering aspect on them. Half the time I spend like freaking 10-20 minutes in here searching through all of these, trying to find the specific aspect that I want, so that I can take that aspect out and then put it on an item. It's very difficult to search through all these items and find a specific thing that you're looking for. Some type of search feature would be very handy for the stash. Definitely. And I think a lot of people are in this boat where they're literally looking for something in their own stash, and it doesn't have anything to do with badly organized. It's just, it's very difficult to search for specific things within the stash. I have everything organized by, legendary items here. I've got unique items here, and of course my rare items are spilling over into my unique items because I don't have enough space. And I'm holding on to lower level items so that I could utilize those on characters as I'm leveling. But a search function would be nice, as well as more stash space would also be nice. With show damage numbers off, there is still a vulnerable spam, and then this is annoying. It's very annoying. A lot of people have complained about it. I don't like it. I think it's really stupid to have the vulnerable spam going on, especially if you're one of the people that has specifically chosen to turn that off. So if you are a character who does not want to see the vulnerable spam on the screen, or rather the numbers on the screen, chances are you probably don't want to see the vulnerable spam on the screen either. And to exemplify this, I can just go outside of any town, and I can literally just shoot random monsters, because my bone spear literally makes everything vulnerable pretty much every single time I shoot them. So I just end up with vulnerable spam all over my screen all the time. As you can see, just like tons and tons of vulnerable notifications every single time I tag monsters. And the bigger the group of the monsters is, the more vulnerable spam you're going to see. Like, to the point of ridiculousness. If somebody is specifically choosing to turn the numbers off, like, don't keep a whole bunch of stuff still on the screen. There are people who specifically don't want to see any of that garbage on the screen, and sometimes they do. Sometimes they'll turn the numbers back on, which is fine. Like, if they're choosing to have the numbers on, then yeah, leave it up there. But if somebody's choosing to turn the numbers off, get that crap off the screen. I don't know why it's still up there. Like, it's annoying. It fills up the screen. It makes it hard to see what's going on in the combat. Like, I personally don't like to have my damage numbers on, even though I do turn them on occasionally. World Tier 4 in general just seems too easy after gearing for Nightmare Sigils. So this is kind of more of a complaint for higher level characters, but as you start to gear toward these higher level Nightmare Sigils and you start to do this content that is, you know, ridiculously difficult, especially when you're doing really high level sigils far above your level, which, by the way, a quick tip for sigils is that the sigil is always plus 54 of your level. So if you take the sigil number and you add 54 to it, that is the level of the monster that you're going to be fighting, which they're always going to be higher level than you, because if you're doing a higher level sigil than yourself, then you're going to end up with higher level monsters, and you generally want to, because 3 levels higher than yourself is optimal for EXP. But in general, as I've been playing the Nightmare Sigils and going into these really hard dungeons, the overworld in World Tier 4 has felt absolutely ridiculously easy, to the point where I'm literally just kind of yawning and walking through it. And this is a side effect of the fact that you have really hard level content for players to do, but then the World Tier 4 is easy. I don't know exactly what to say. Maybe we need a World Tier 5 that is more appropriate for high-level characters that are geared toward Nightmare Sigils. Or maybe you just need to make the content a little bit harder in the open world. I don't know. But World Tier 4 definitely just seems way too easy after gearing up for the Nightmare Sigils. Finding the same unique over and over and over and over and over again. I don't know what's going on with the drop system, if it's bad coding or what's going on, but everyone within my kinship has been complaining about this, because we literally have been finding the same exact unique multiple times. For me, specifically, it has been the Blood Artisan Curios. I have found 10 of these armors in 2 weeks. 10 of them. It is absolutely stupid insane. Leon, who is in our kinship, has found like 10 to 15 Fields of Crimson, which is one of the swords that the Barbarian finds. Everybody seems to be literally haunted by one specific unique item, which seems to be dropping repeatedly over and 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 over again without end. I don't know what's going on with the drop system, or whether they've got something badly tuned or something, but literally we just keep finding the same exact unique over and over again, and not the ones we actually want. Obviously, a lot of people are hunting for the Shaco, the Harlequin Crest, or the Grandfather, or some of the more rare uniques like the Ring of the Starless Skies, right? But it's really disappointing that every single time a unique drops, it's literally the same exact unique that we've gotten multiple times before. I have destroyed and sold so many of these duplicate uniques that literally it's just laughable at this point. I put a counter up on my stream, literally just counting up the number of Blood Artisan Curios, and every time I find a new one, I just add another one. I'm up to 10. Who knows how many more I'm going to find tomorrow. Minions still, for some reason, seem to get wiped out even with Death Defense passive. So all of the minions in the game, I think even on non-necromancer characters, have something like this, which is basically passive that prevents the monsters from being hit for 100% of their health and killed in a single damage instance. This one in particular says your minions cannot lose more than 30% of their maximum life from a single damage instance, which basically means that no matter how many times a monster, no matter how hard a monster hits your minions, they cannot die from 1 shot, they cannot die from 2 shots, they cannot die from 3 shots, and they cannot die they will die possibly from the 4th shot of damage, right? Well, it's bullcrap. I don't know what's going on with his ability, but sometimes it wants to work and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes I will go into an encounter with a monster and the monster will immediately kill all of my minions like that in one attack. And I don't know if it's because the monster is technically doing more than one attack of damage, like maybe it's a poison tick and each tick of the poison is literally doing more than 30% of their life and damage for each tick, and so they're just going tick, 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 dead, or something like that. But the ability of Death's Defense to protect the minions from instantaneous death does not work the way that it should. In some situations, it will protect their lives, but for the most part, it feels like the ability is broken, and the ball you will literally get into encounters where monsters will literally just one-shot your entire army. And for that to occur with an ability like Death's Defense active, this is stupid. It's absolutely 100% stupid, and it shouldn't happen. Death's Defense is supposed to prevent your army from getting one-shot. It's supposed to make it so that your army would require 4 hits of damage to die at any time, which means that no matter what, if I walk into a group of monsters with a full HP army, Death's Defense should prevent them from dying in any instance from a one-shot of damage. And they've got to do something to fix this so that the minions are not getting one-shot by pretty much everything. It will work sometimes, but it's few and far between of when it actually works. Most of the time, I just find myself spamming the skeleton button to resurrect them, because most of the time they just die in one shot, and it's sad. And occasionally, I come across monsters that have multiple damage effects. Like, for instance, they might be fire enchanted, explosive enchanted, poison enchanted, suppressor, like, and literally the minions go in there to fight, and they get hit by the explosions, the suppressor, the poison, all at once. Literally all the hit attacks will hit them all at once, and they all just fall down. It's like ashes to ashes, dust to dust, we all fall down. Like not even joking. Like, this just instantaneous fall down. And if you resurrect them, they just instantaneously fall down again. So I really would like them to take a look at Death's Defense passive and figure out why the hell it's not actually working the way that it's supposed to. And this is after it recently got buffed, by the way, because it used to be 45% health, now it's 30% health. Player-based effects often obscure important boss or monster floor-based attacks, making it next to impossible to see what to avoid. Necromancer Blight is a big example of this, but there's tons of different things that are causing this problem. So when you have a game full of ground-based effects, like using the waypoint as an example again, if this is a ground-based effect, I can see it. I know to avoid it, right? Well, the problem is that there's so many various things, like the Blight skill on the Necromancer, which is currently blotting out the surface of the sun, blizzard, ice-based ground effects, meteors, all sorts of various things that are obscuring vision during a fight. And oftentimes the ground-based effects, like poison or little, like ice puddles and things like that that are going to freeze you and kill you, that generally do get you killed, are very hard to see. I would like to see them kind of like clear this stuff up a little bit, make things maybe a little bit more translucent so that we can actually see what the hell's going on. Like, I don't want to be in a group with a Necromancer and have to tell the Necromancer not to use his Blight ability because I can't see the ground. That should never be a thing. I should not have to ever talk to the Necromancer and tell him to stop using an ability because I'm having trouble seeing ground-based effects and avoiding them, which leads to my death. Linking items in chat is often bugged due to specific items being messed up to the point where the item can no longer be linked, but others can't. What do I mean by this? Well, like if I go to my chat right now, I pull up my clan window, open up my inventory, and I start trying to link items. I can link this shield. I can link this ring. I can link this scythe. Oh, no, wait, I can't. Some items, for some reason or another, will allow you to link them, and some items won't. And I don't know what the bug is. I can link this sword, for instance, or I used to be able to link this sword. I guess I can't link it anymore. I can't link my shield anymore. I mean, it literally, there you go. I can link my shield. I can't link my sword. I can't link the scythe. I cannot link my ring. I can't link that ring. I can't link, all right, I can link my helmet. I can't link my armor. I can't link my gloves. I can take off the armor, try and link it from my stash. That doesn't work. And basically, I can't share items with people in a kinship. Like, half the time, I'm literally like, hey guys, I just made myself a new pair of pants. Check out these freaking god tier freaking tank pants that I made that got lots of tanky buffs on them. Nope, can't link those. Check out my freaking, tank shield. Oh, I can link that. Why can I link my tank shield, but I can't link my pants? I don't know. I don't know. I really don't. That's something that needs to be fixed. Wardrobe items constantly becoming untransmogged and then randomly retransmogging. So I had this happen like 100 times, and every single time it's really freaking weird. So like, I literally would like load out of my character. I would go back to the main screen, and I would see my character would just have like a completely different transmog than what I set him up as. So he would just be wearing like some weird armor and like weird pants, and like his shield would be something completely different than what it would normally be. And then I would load into the game, and my transmogs would be off. And then 10-20 minutes later, I would log out, log back in, and all my transmogs would be back again. It was really freaking strange. I don't know exactly what's going on with the transmog system or why certain transmogs are being better than others. I mean, I'm well aware that you could do this and you can actually hide your transmog. So I can actually go like this and I can hide what the transmog is. But that's not the case. Like, when this occurs, what ends up happening is this disappears completely and it's just gone. Like, it's no longer transmogged. And then later, randomly, of its own accord, the transmog will just suddenly come back. And then again, it will just go away again. And it's like the transmog system seems to be bugged in a very weird way. Depending on the power of your character, some of the shrines seem useless, and the greed shrine doesn't scale with level, and is basically worthless past a certain point. So this is kind of like on the point of like your character being extremely powerful. So if you're capable of dishing out more damage than the conduit shrine can do, then clicking on a conduit shrine seems kind of pointless. Like, you don't even want to do it sometimes. Like, it seems to scale with your level, but then at the same time it also doesn't seem to scale properly, because more often than not you'll be more powerful than the conduit shrine, or less powerful than the conduit shrine, depending on case and point. And so, like, sometimes these shrines, they just don't really scale properly. The greed shrine specifically doesn't scale at all. Like, this thing, like, literally past a certain point is just completely worthless. Like, at early levels, when you were a low-level character, like, you're giving out, like, 130, 400, to 300 gold seemed kind of nice. And then as you got higher in level and you started to get, like, 1 million, 10 million gold, 20 million, 40 million gold in your inventory, you started to realize that, well, the greed shrine just wasn't scaling, and it's still giving you, like, 130 gold. Why? Like, some of the shrines need some work. Some of them are really good, don't get me wrong. Like, the artillery shrine is absolutely amazing. The freaking channeling shrine is absolutely amazing. The crit shrine is okay, depending on your build. If you already have max crit, it doesn't do anything for you, but if you're running low crit, it's amazing. Like, in general, the shrines are kind of hit or miss, depending on what kind of character you are and what you're doing. Level penalty is too severe for making group play, and it makes it very difficult. What do I mean by this? Well, in Diablo 2, if I was level 86, like I am right now, and a character who was level 70 wanted to join my group, sure, let's level up together, right? Well, when I'm doing a Nightmare Sigil, and I'm making it 3 levels higher than myself, so it's going to be 86 plus 3, which is going to be 89. There's no scaling. Okay, so the player is trying to play with me in a level 89 dungeon, and he's only level 70, which is a difference of 19 levels. Okay, anything over about 17 levels in difficulty, like anything 17 plus, is like next to impossible for the person who's trying to play with you. Their damage basically goes down to ridiculously low numbers. Their defenses go down to ridiculously low numbers. They end up basically getting one-shot by literally everything within the group, which makes it very difficult to make groups to actually do content where every player feels useful, because the level penalty that they have set up is just way too severe. I mean, a difference of 20 levels in Diablo 2 isn't really that big of a deal. If I'm level 90 and somebody else is level 70, then, like, who cares? We're still playing together. We're still having fun. He might be a little bit more powerful than me at level 90, but I'm still able to hold my own and contribute. But that's not the case here. 17 plus levels, literally to the point where, like, once you reach 17 plus, it's the level penalty is so severe that it literally makes any player who's playing with you, like, useless to that point. So you're basically just carrying the group. Like, so if I make a dungeon and I make it 3 levels higher than myself at level 89, nobody's going to be able to join me unless they're close enough to that level 89 to actually contribute. Which I do find to be an issue, because I want to group up with people within the kinship. I want to group up and have fun with people. And 17 levels just seems really strict. Like, to the point where literally once you hit that, more than 17 levels above your character, you're useless. Why can't we play single player? Like, I had a couple times where the servers went down. We were all stuck in queues for a really long period of time, and everybody would probably rather be playing than not. Like, why can't we play single player? It's such a simple thing, but monster level scaling, conveniently inconvenient. What do I mean by this? Well, sometimes it works, sometimes the monsters scale properly, and, you can actually do content with your friends, like overworld content and things like that. But it's also inconvenient at the same time, in that you don't really ever feel strong, and with the exception of the Nightmare Dungeons, which is really the only place where you feel weak, you don't really feel weak either. Because the scaling is always there, it's always present, you never really run into places where you feel like a god, right? Which is one of the most fun things about Diablo games, is going back to, like a lower difficulty setting or whatever, and just, like, walking through the content that you at one point had trouble with, right? But there's really not a lot of that in Diablo 4. On top of that, there's really not a lot of places that you can go to that are going to make you feel challenged either. So, like, especially the overworld right now, like, if I go anywhere in the overworld, and I talked about this earlier, like, the overworld just feels absolutely easy at this point, because World Tier 4 just isn't strong enough for me. So there's nowhere really for me to go to feel strong, and there's nowhere for me to go really to feel weak within the level scaling world. The only place that I can go to feel weak is literally Nightmare Sigils, and honestly, it's so severe that once you hit about 17 levels plus, the monsters are pretty much just one-shotting you for the most part, which is, I don't really know if that's fun gameplay so much as it is just stressful, like always trying to watch out for an attack that will literally put you into the dirt, like, in one hit. Like, and this comes back to the whole armor, like, being just horrible in higher tier content, because armor is tied to resistances, and the way that armor penalties work at higher levels, like, it just kind of doesn't feel like fun content. It just feels like the monster just outlevels me by such a huge degree that what chance do I actually have of, like, completing this content? And as we all try and figure out how to properly gear our characters and how to properly play versus these high-level monsters, because it seems like that's the goal, is to try and push this high-level content, we may get better at it, but as of right now, the way that they have the game set up and the over-reliance on armor causes many players to enter into this with the wrong tools at their disposal. I think that's pretty much it. I've already been going on for about an hour and 18 minutes, literally just talking straight about issues with the game. And I also want to exemplify that I am having fun with the game. These issues are things that I feel like they could easily fix and work on and make the game better, not worse. And I did miss one in here, and this is one that probably needs to be taken care of. And this is dungeon EXP shares across the entire dungeon. This is something that Diablo 2 fixed a long time ago because they realized that this was stupid because you could have like literally level 1 characters sitting at the beginning of a dungeon while a high level character runs through the dungeon and kills everything, giving EXP to the level 1 character who's of course not helping or doing anything, and doesn't have to put themselves in any kind of harm's way to get the EXP. Diablo 2 did what was called EXP range. So you had to be standing next to the person who killed the monster within a certain distance to get that bonus, to get that EXP, right? So it basically made it so you had to take your level 1 character and put them into danger to try and get this EXP. And it prevented a lot of just mooching in general. I don't think that this is a good thing, and it's definitely something that they're going to want to have to address eventually, especially for ladder, because you really don't want a whole bunch of people just spamming characters this way. Granted, there's always going to be a quick level up method, and people are always going to figure out this stuff, but this is just low hanging fruit, something that they should have fixed a long time ago. I'm trying to think if there's anything else because I don't want to leave anything out of this. This is literally supposed to be like a end all be all, like full list of all the issues that I've had with the game so far, and I'm sure that I'm going to miss something. If you guys can think of anything specifically, let me know. And maybe if you have like comments to make on some of the stuff that I've talked about so far, feel free. But I do want to exemplify the fact that I'm not bashing the game. I do feel like the game is very fun, but there are a lot of small quality of life fixes that they need to address. And this is literally an hour and 20-minute video of me talking about those small quality of life issues that they need to address. As always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos, even when I'm just ranting for a million freaking minutes about stuff like this, and keep watching.